Hey guys, and welcome to part 7 of the Creating a Game series. Today we will be looking at adding a space skybox to the second level that we created on the last video. We'll be looking at the procedural debris blueprint. This is going to allow you to create procedural asteroid fields. We will finally create an alternate path, just like you see in Corneria for the secret boss. We're going to do that on level 1. And we're going to look at how we can modify the track speed while the player is on a track. So if I just go back and jump to Unreal, here we are at level 1. The first thing we'll do actually is before we do anything here on level 1, let's go ahead and jump to level 2 and make some of those changes. So if we go back to the root folder ASST, go to Maps, go to Level Tutorial 2, and we're going to get rid of some of this default skyboxes here. So if we go all the way up to components, let's delete the atmospheric fog. Let's delete the sky sphere. And let's leave the light source, which is movable, and the skylight. And right now, obviously, it's just pitch black. So let's go back to blueprints, actors, skybox, and BP skybox, and go ahead and drop this all the way here in the middle of the level. And we're going to move this to the components folder just to keep things organized. And I know that the rest is pretty messy here. And then let's make the location 0, 0, 0. Make sure that it is at the beginning of the level here. And we need to scale this up. So let's do, just for the purposes of this, 100, 100, 100. And as you can see, we now have a little space skybox. So if I just click play, you can see that we do have a little skybox. Okay, fair enough. And actually, let's just get rid of this floor and make it even more, well, never mind. We need it for the turret here. So let's just leave it at like that for now. Okay, actually, you know what? Now let's just take care of the floor and let's just delete the turret. It doesn't really matter anymore. So go ahead and delete the turret, and we will delete the cubes here. Delete the cubes. This makes it a little bit makes it look like we are actually in space. Okay. All right. And now we will go and add the procedural debris. So let's click on Save All. Go to Actors, Tools, and then go to BP, Procedural Debris. And go ahead and drop it in the middle of the level. And again, we'll center this in the middle of the level by making the location 0, 0, 0. We're going to zoom in and take a look at it. And let's rotate it by 180 degrees. And here, you're going to see two things. We need to scale it up, obviously, so it has asteroids all over the place. But what we want is for us to have the asteroids be on the outskirts of the level. We don't want the asteroids to be in the middle of the track, as you can see here, because we don't want the player to be hitting the asteroid. So this is more in a sense of kind of decoration in the back end of the level. So what we want to do here is, if you go to the properties panel, you'll see that you have the static mesh is SM debris 1. You have up to 3 choices here, but we're just going to go ahead and just keep it as 1. For the material, let's type debris and let's say debris gray. And then we do want to make destructible, so we will choose DM debris 1 as the destructible mesh. So every single asteroid mesh comes with its own destructible mesh. Make sure you match them both, otherwise it'll look kind of funny. And then we have 2 very specific values here. We have bounds and we have a call volume. So the bounds is the total area of the asteroid field, and basically the blueprint will spawn debris randomly in a random location rotation within that bounce. So obviously right now the bounce is very small, 5, 5, 5. So let's make this 50, 50, and let's make this 20. Now let's make this 50. Okay. And you can see now that the bounds are a lot bigger, and we only have 3 little asteroids here because the number of instances is 3, obviously. So if I go ahead and bump this up to like 500, automatically you see that, well, now we have a bunch more right here. So if I just click play right now, you can see that now it looks like there's just a bunch of random debris everywhere. Okay. Now there's another concept that I have here, and this is this small little box here, and it's called the calling volume. So I'm gonna demo it here real quick just to prove a point. So let's say that we want a lot more instances than this. Let's say that we want, I don't know, 1,000. And instead of having it like this, maybe the Z scale is maybe 40. So it's gonna be even more compacted. So you can see it's getting pretty compact here. Let's make it even more, 30. Right? So you can see here that if I just click play, there's a lot of debris, obviously. So what happens if we just keep packing and packing and packing debris? Let me just take this out and just keep adding. Let's make this, I don't know, 1,200, maybe 2,000. Gets pretty crazy, right? So we want to make sure that even if we do have a ridiculous asteroid field like this, we have space for the player to traverse the track. And right now, they're placed randomly, right? So you may have, you can see here, there's a little piece here that's coming inside the track. Randomly, you can have a bunch of different ones that will actually block the path, and you may want that, right? But if you don't, I have something called the call volume, and this is a volume that is within the bounds that immediately removes any instance that spawns there. So effectively, by using the call volume, you can create a path for the player where there are no asteroids or no debris, basically ensuring that it does have a path to fly through. So right now the call volume is 555. So what if I, and you can see it here, so what if I said, no, instead of 555, let's make this the same as X, 50. Let's make it 60, just to make a point. And you can see it here. This is the call volume here. Kind of hard to see here. And I am going to make this, the Y is going to be, let's make this 20. Nope, let's make it a 10. And the Z is a 10. Okay. And now, if we look at the call volume, where it is covering the track. Let's move this a little bit higher. Here. Okay. And now if I click play, then I am basically guaranteed that I will have a path for the player where there is no debris. And if you can't see it clearly, I can show you even more here by packing in the instances. So maybe instead of 50, 50, 30, maybe it's 30, 30. And now, if I go to game mode here, it's not very obvious, but look at what happens if you click use call volume and disable it. Now you have no path. And as soon as you enable it, it automatically creates the path. So make sure that you use a call volume. If you are doing procedural debris on a track, make sure that if you want a guaranteed path with no instances, that you use a call volume and align it with the track. That way, it doesn't matter how random the debris is, it will actually not be part of the track. So let's go back, make this 50 and 50. And we don't need that many instances. Let's just keep it at 1,000 here. And actually, you know what? Let's do something else. Let's make them even, well, let's just leave it at that for now. Yeah, let's just leave it as is for now. Let's click on save. And if we click play here, now you can see that we have a spacescape that we were able to use very quickly. We have some procedural debris. And we can actually destroy it, as you can see. If we shoot at it, you can see it there, we can actually destroy it. So you may want some debris to be in the path. Oops, and we just finished the level there. You may want some debris in the path if you want it to be an obstacle. Cool. One last thing if we move on, because I think we're taking a little too long here. You do have the option, if you scroll down, to have all of the instances rotate. Be very careful here though. This does have a pretty significant performance impact. I have a pretty decent GPU, so you may not really notice a lot, but even with 1,000 instances, if you click on rotate instance, rotation timer, make sure that you don't put this way too low. This is basically saying that it will actually rotate, and let's make it rotate a 10 in Z and maybe a 7 in Y. And if we click, let's just go ahead and save here. If we click on simulate, you will notice now that the instances are rotating slowly. So make sure you keep this movement subtle, and then you'll notice that it does add, you can see now that the instances are rotating slowly. So just keep in mind that you can have this effect, but it does have a significant impact on performance. Another thing you could do is you could layer this effect, right? You could have multiple blueprints of procedural debris. Maybe you have one that is tighter to the track that does rotate, and then you have another one that's a lot bigger that doesn't rotate. And that way, you know, the player is very unlikely to see something rotating very far, so that way you can kind of control it. You also have the ability, and this is again taking it even farther, to actually rotate the actor. So if you click play, you'll notice that the actor himself is rotating. This is kind of a weird effect, but the entire blueprint is now rotating. So not the actual instances, but the actual blueprint. So you can create some pretty nifty effects. If you want the instances to rotate and the actor to rotate, then you get, well, you get this. And of course, again, you can destroy these guys. Obviously, now you can't guarantee that they're not going to be on the way, right? So just be mindful of what your goal is. Oops. When you're creating the instances, I'm going to go ahead and disable rotation. Actually, I'll leave it here, just the small rotation, and I'm going to make this 0.2, meaning it's going to rotate even less frequently. The lower the number here, the faster it'll rotate, and the more taxing it'll be. Cool. So we've added a skybox, we added a procedural debris. Now let's jump back to Unreal to create an alternate path. And for this example today, we're going to be using triggers. This is the exact example that we have in Corneria. So if you remember in Corneria, if you go underneath the arches and you hit the 3 arches, all of a sudden you're taking a different route, right? So we're going to do just that. Let's go ahead and extend this a little bit. And if I come here to stage clear and move it here, well, actually, let's just do it like this. That's fine. Let's grab this NPC message, move it closer. we're just giving ourselves some space here to add the arches. And let's go ahead and go to the root folder, go to meshes. Let's see here, go to buildings. These are just pure meshes, and go to SM Rock Arch and go ahead and drop that in. And if we just focus here, let's make this, there you go. Let's just scale this up by 2 just to make it easy for this example. Okay. All right, and let's go ahead and make this simple color brown. We're just gonna make this brown for now. And all we're doing is we're doing the same example as Corneria, so we're gonna keep this very simple. When the player comes here, if he goes underneath the arches, he will go on an alternate path. So we're gonna go ahead and duplicate this a second time, a third time. Let's make it 4 just to showcase that you can actually make this as versatile as you want. And let's go ahead and scale them up a little bit higher in the Y. In the Z, make it 3. Okay. So if the player goes through 4 of these guys, he will go to an alternate path. So how do we do this, right? Let's go ahead and click save. So let's go back to blueprints, actors, tracks, and we're going to add another track. So drag an instance of BP track into the level. And all right, and we're going to put it about here. See that there's a blueprint number 4. We're going to latch on to that blueprint right here. So go ahead and expand it like this, expand it again, and maybe here expand it one more time. We're going to go a different route like this. Okay, so we can go ahead and try to match it as much as possible here. And you can go ahead and try to match as close as possible. But I do have a little tool that I'm going to use here. Actually, go back to number 1 and try to add a spline point there. And you'll see why in a moment. And now let's go back and try to align them there. The idea here is that you want to align at least 2 spline points from 2 different tracks. So when the player actually goes into the alternate track, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, the transition is seamless. If you don't align it, then there will be a little hiccup on the transition, and you don't want to do that. So if you go to BP track 2, you will see that there is a section called connection. And what we want to do is we want to align spline point in this track, spline point 0, with spline point 4 on the other track. And the other track is BP track. So what happens when I do this is I click event connect track, and now the points are exactly aligned. Now we're going to do the same for spline point number 1 and 5. So click on spline point on this track, spline point 1. You will align it with spline point 5 on the other track. And as soon as you hit event connect to track, you'll notice that the spline point immediately latched on to the exact same location. Now, if you just look at this, you'll notice that the connection is pretty much seamless. One more thing we want to do is click on this spline point here and go to spline point type and make it linear. And that way, you will basically guarantee that there is no hiccup. It will be exactly the same. Okay? So, what are we doing? We want the player to go underneath, go through these 4 arches, and if he does go through the 4 arches, he will, instead of going into the original track here, it'll come here around to this alternate track. Okay? And let's go ahead and make this even longer here. And we're going to clone, click on the floor, click Alt and clone it. And we're going to rotate it like this. Okay. And the only reason I'm doing that is just to give us a sense of speed. So you can see that there is an alternate track. Let's go ahead and scale it by 150 in the X, make it a little bit longer here. And let's go ahead and make this even longer like this. Okay. All right. So now we need to drag a BP assign track to assign the player to the second track. So if we drag BP assign track here, just drag it anywhere in the level, send to track, go to setup, send to track, BP track 2, click on event align to track, and it'll automatically align it itself. Okay. And if we go here, you'll notice that now we have the assigned track right there, perfectly aligned. Now, when clicking on BP align track 2, notice that we have a few things here. There's text, assigned track. We can change this to port secret route. And this is just an editor feature, just so you know that that this is going to the secret route if you hit it. And you'll notice that there are 3 different modes: active, use trigger counter, and use death counter. The default is active. Active means that as soon as the player overlaps, it'll go through the secret route. So if I click play without doing anything, and I just kind of go through the level, without going through the arches, it doesn't really matter at this point if I go through arches or not. You'll notice that automatically I go to the left. I am now on the secret track and I didn't have to do anything. And the reason for that is because the mode was active, meaning as soon as you overlap, you're going to go through the secret route. See how we just went through the secret route. But that's not what we want. What we want is to change the mode from active to use trigger counter. So use trigger counter means that if the player goes through a specific number of triggers, it will become active. So we want to use 4 triggers because we have 4 arches. So we're going to go here and click on total count 4. Click on save. And then go here under the tracks folder, BP track trigger counter. Drag it into your level. And this is the trigger that the player needs to overlap. So let's go ahead and scale it up. And we are going to put the trigger underneath the arch. Okay. Let's make it a little smaller here. There we go. All right. And there we go. Now we're aligning it to the arch, and we're going to go ahead and duplicate. And actually, before we duplicate, go to the properties panel under setup and click on assign track reference. Which track reference do we have? Click on the drop down, and this is referring to BP assign track 2. This is the one that we just dropped down here for the secret track, and this is the one that has the setting for the triggers. So now that we have this trigger here, we're going to duplicate it by pressing Alt, duplicate it and put it here, duplicate it again, and one last time here. So basically, in a nutshell, because you have BP assign track 2 here, oops, not here, here, the mode is use trigger counter, the total count is 4, so it'll wait for the player to overlap 4 different triggers before it becomes active. So we have to add the triggers in the level, and every time you overlap one trigger, it'll basically reduce the count on this blueprint here, and eventually once the count gets to 0, it'll become active and the player engages. Right? So make sure that the triggers are before, obviously, the secret track, otherwise it won't work. Right? So now if we click play, we're gonna go through here, and this time I'm not gonna go through all of the triggers. 1, 2, I'm gonna purposely go around, and you'll notice that we don't go to the secret track. As a matter of fact, we're reaching the end, and we actually finish the level normally, right? Game saved, blah, blah, blah. And this is just mission complete, normal. If I click on play and now actually go through the arches, we now go through the secret track. Fair enough. This is the method that I'm using in Corneria. We will review the other method with a death counter for enemies in a future video. That's a separate setup. But for now, let's just do one more thing real quick. Let's come to the end of the level and clone the stage clear blueprint. So press Alt and clone it. Let's rotate it by about 90 degrees or 30 degrees. And let's put it all the way at the end of the track here, just to make sure that when the player gets here, it'll also end the track. But in this case, instead of saying mission complete, we'll put mission accomplished. Okay, and now you'll notice, well, this is a really long stretch for the track, so we are going to use yet one more blueprint. If we go back here, to change the track speed and speed it up. So the original track speed here is 20. The track for the original is also 20. So here, while selecting this, we're going to use a blueprint called BP change track speed. Drag it to your level. Let's rotate it and align it to the track here. Let's scale it up. Make sure that the player will definitely overlap it. Scale it up a little bit more. Okay. All right. And this blueprint will basically change the track speed. And we're going to say, while selecting this, go to setup, forward speed, instead of 25, let's make this, I don't know, 75. Let's make it real fast, just for the sake of ending the video a little bit quicker. And then you also have the ability to change the horizontal speed and the vertical speed, basically how fast the player can go up and down. And the reason for that is, if you slow down the player, you don't want the offset to be as fast as if it was going on a normal speed, right? If the ship is going really fast, maybe you want the horizontal speed and vertical speed to also increase. If the ship is going very slow, you may want to decrease the offset to give the illusion that, you know, the ship, if the ship is going really slow, it can't really go up and down that fast, right? So you do have these values here to play around with them. So I'm not going to touch this. I'm just going to go ahead and click play. And now we're going to actually finish the level by going through the alternate path. Okay, checkpoint saved. Go around. Let's go ahead and boost. We're going to go underneath the arches. Make sure that we grab all of the triggers. We are now in the alternate path, and we should be hitting that blueprint for the speed pretty quickly now. And notice that now we are going a lot faster. We are going at 75 speed. We should have made this a lot faster, actually, maybe 200, but regardless, we're going from 20 to 75. And now once we get the end, we should now hit stage clear. Stage clear now says mission accomplished, as you can see there, because that's the text. And once it's done, it should load us to the next level, which is the one we just worked on. There we go. Level 2, almost there. Cool. All right. So let's take a quick recap. We changed the skybox to a space skybox on level 2. we learned how to add procedural debris, which is, by the way, destructible and highly efficient because you're using instant static meshes. We now know how to add an alternate path in the level, maybe like a secret boss. And by the way, you're not limited to one. You can add as many alternate paths as you want. We are doing this by using triggers. We are now able to change the track speed, and that includes speeding it up or slowing it down. And now we have two different ways of ending the level and going to the next level. Cool. Alrighty. Hopefully this is turning out to be quite an informative series. I haven't decided what we're going to look at next. Most likely we will add a boss so we can learn how to set that up in level 2. So hope you're liking where this is going. If you have any questions, if something doesn't work, leave a comment on the video or message me directly. Otherwise, thank you guys so much, and we will see you later.